Surprise podcast. Let's disable my phone.
Is this 248 or 249? I don't remember.
It is 248 by my count.
Is that your globe?
Yeah.
That's so
That's
exciting.
cool.
I'm running a little bit of issues with it, but yeah, it's coming.
How close are you to butting it up?
I thought I was gonna have it done by today, but I ran into some weird circuit boardness. So I'm having to troubleshoot. And I cut some stuff too small originally. I cut some of the fiber optic cables too short. Because apparently I had a different plan than and the plan evolved, and my original plan is incompatible with my current plan. So I've had to have a circuit board that I had like the LEDs hard soldered to the ones for the Infinity Gauntlet, and so the lines from his gauntlet to the circuit board were not long enough to reach through all the stuff that it's routed through. And there's not really a good way to extend those, from what I could tell.
You have to have well, usually with the glass ones, there's a splicer, but
yeah,
that's not a simple thing to handle.
So I desoldered I clipped off the LEDs, and soldered on basically lead wires, and at the end of each pair of wires I have the LED, so they're like I can move them around and stuff, and like move them to the like where they need to be, kind of thing. But then when I did that, some of them work, some of them don't work now. So I'm having to troubleshoot that.
Oh no!
Yeah. So some of them light up. Let's see. I actually.
It sounds crisp enough that you can understand what he's he's saying.
Good.
Steady,
And some of them don't work. I don't know why. Having to figure out what's going on with that. So, and then I've got my trip, so I'm not going to be able to work on it until next week. And this week has pretty much been a bust for in-shop time, which I'll talk about. But I'm ready to discuss that at any point.
All right, let's go ahead and get started then. You set?
Ready.
All right.
Hold on, not ready.
Phone silenced.
So my wife and kids are watching Boba Fett while I.
Oh no! No, you can't
So
hear
if
it,
they're
can you?
screaming upstairs. No, I can't hear it.
Okay.
So we have our TV over the fireplace, and with the weather, how it's been lately, we've had the fireplace running a lot, and it shorted out the TV because it got too hot.
Oh.
So yesterday I pulled the TV off of the fireplace wall, and tripped the reset or whatever, where you have to like unplug it, hold down the power cord for like 10 seconds, plug it back in, keep the button held down for another 30 seconds, unplug it, release the power button, plug it back, whatever the magic sequence of events is. And it started working again, but I'm like, I don't want to put this above the fireplace. And so I put it upstairs in the playroom, and the kids clean it up, and they're upstairs watching. So I'm not going to hear it or anything.
Don't let them say anything, because they're going to want to say
they'll
something.
be fast. They'll be asleep before we're done, I'm sure.
Cool.
Don't let them say anything. Let's stay up until like 2 o'clock in the morning watching Boba Fett.
Yup. As Josh would say. Yup.
You. All right, let's do it. What's up, Internet? You are listening to the Making Geeks podcast, a podcast for makers, families, and geeks.
What's
Hey,
up?
guys.
What's up? What's
Hey.
up?
Happy winter.
Yeah, happy Wednesday.
Finally winter.
I don't know about you guys. I'm here in shorts and a t-shirt. It's spring here.
Mm.
You know, we had our 4 or 5 weeks of winter. You know, cold weather. You know, getting down to about 40 degrees is about as cold as it gets here. And yeah,
Nice.
it's springtime. I know that probably pisses a lot of people off, but I kind of wish winter was longer here.
I wish spring was longer here.
I wish we had a winter here. I say that, and it's like kind of snowing outside right now, maybe. I'm still doubtful. I have a lot of bitter feelings towards Oklahoma winters, but it might be snowing right now and not just freezing rain, which it's been all evening. So, but it's fine. It's fun. It's fun. How you guys been?
Busy, but not doing things I want to do.
So life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not all of them were stuff I didn't want to do. Some of the things were cool. My daughter turned 11, which is cool. I was definitely happy about that. And then I think the day after, she had a dentist appointment. And no cavities or anything. She's never had any cavities. But she's had 2 stubborn baby teeth that have like refused to fully come out, and the adult tooth has taken their place. And so they're like, yeah, you should probably take them out. And so I had to sign that paper to give permission to that. And like before I could even sign it, I could hear her wailing in the back room. And she's normally like completely calm at the dentist, but she gets super overworked with stuff like just medical things. As anybody that has never had a tooth pulled, or pulled is a light
It's not fun at
definition.
any age.
Yeah, exactly. And so they just used like a piece of dental floss and like pulled it out. It's not like it was barely hanging on, but it was enough to make it look like she got her wisdom teeth taken out. There's like blood everywhere.
Is she chipmunk and everything?
Almost. Yeah, it wasn't quite that bad, but they said the holes like sealed up as soon as they popped out. So that started her week off badly. And then tonight she does, she swims throughout the year. She has swim practice for like almost 2 hours every night during the week. And she had an incident at the pool where she had another swimmer collided in the water. Not diving, but like she was crossing the lanes, like crossing the rope. And as she crossed, she didn't look, and the other swimmer didn't look, and there was a swimmer that was like pushing off of the wall doing a backstroke, right? Like basically Samantha T-boned her with her nose, and we think she broke her nose. Her nose is crooked, like it's like that.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, and so so this was 2 days after getting her teeth pulled, so blood has oozed out of orifices out of her head that it normally don't come out of, with 2 different places within 3 days. So it's not been a great week for her. And then we have a new puppy, which I failed to mention, I think, last week as geeking out. He's typically pretty good. He's very mischievous. Like he should be named Loki instead of Loki. He's living up to that puppy stereotype. Every shoe, every sock, everything he'll go after. So it's like baby proofing, but worse.
Wait, Cosmo? Is that what you named him?
Cosmo, yeah.
Cosmo, okay.
Yep. So he was named after the space dog from Guardians of the Galaxy. We had like several days worth of debates of what to call him, and that was the one that we settled on. He's really good. It's disrupting the normal flow of the day to the point where I can barely get into the shop, and if I can't get in here, he's like whining or something, and I can't get like a good focus on doing things. So it's hard because a lot of the things that I do in here, just mentally, I kind of have to like settle into them, and like especially like soldering, electronics work. I can't sort of half have my mind into it, expecting to be interrupted. Like that's like the worst state for me to be in because I'll make all kinds of mistakes. Even if I'm not actively being interrupted, just the thought of it's an impending possibility is enough
Anticipation of it.
Yeah, it's enough to throw me off. So I didn't get really anything done since the last week. Doing some electronic stuff on my current project, but besides all that stuff, I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Your puppy adoption inspired me to look at what puppy options there are around here.
That was a dangerous photo you sent me, sir.
Yeah, I did, because I found a husky puppy that needed a home. And it is cute as ever, husky puppy. And I took a picture and sent it to my wife and was like, hey, out of curiosity, how much trouble would I be in if I brought this home? And so I had a cat that was Jasper that we got when my wife and I first got married. And we had Jasper for a few years, and one day Jasper went out to play and never came back home.
Oh.
And she's like, "Do you remember how sad you were when Jasper left?" She's like, "Just keep that in the forefront of your mind, because if you bring that puppy home, we're gonna realize that we can't take care of a puppy, and you're gonna have to find a new home for it, and your children will be sad, and you will be sad. So just let that seep into your mind while you think about this question of, should I get a puppy?" So, needless to say, I didn't get a puppy, but still, that puppy was dang cute. I was like, I want to be like Wes. I want to get a puppy, but I didn't get a puppy. I've been working a lot, like a lot. School's in full swing. I've been helping my parents out at their farm. I'm editing for John again after a break because of COVID. Minnesota team got COVID about the same time I got COVID. So I was recovering. They were recovering. I wasn't working for him. I'm working for him again. I've got my next project, which is another book nook that I'm really excited about because of the implementing technology into it. It's the Lo-Fi Girl, which if you don't know the Lo-Fi Girl, I don't know how you don't know.
I had no idea what this was last week.
Okay. I figured everybody on YouTube ever would know about the Lo-Fi Girl. But the Lo-Fi Girl is it's a streaming channel that streams lo-fi music for like studying to or sleeping to or whatever. And
I play it in class for my students sometimes.
Yeah. It's great music. And when I'm working on in the shop, most of the time I have Lo-Fi Girl on my TV out in the shop while I'm working, because it's great music. It's great music to have in the background. And it's not entertaining enough that it distracts you from doing what you're doing. That, and I have tinnitus, and so it helps me to have like not white noise, but like something on the background that distracts my brain from the constant ringing that's in my head at all times. And so I always have Lo-Fi Girl, and so I wanted to make a book nook with Lo-Fi Girl because I wanted to implement a Raspberry Pi screen. And so Wes has been helping me figure out how to implement this screen into the back of the book nook. And what it's doing is going out and finding the weather and time of day that is then going to change the animation on the screen. That's the window behind Lo-Fi Girl, which seems really cool. In my brain, it looks really cool.
The idea is fantastic. I think it's really cool.
And so I've been working on that. I don't know if it's a supply chain thing or whatnot. Everybody seems to be out of plywood. I went all over town today trying to find plywood for my laser cutter. Everybody was out, and I looked online and prices they were astronomical. The only place that I can find locally is Michael's, and they only sell Glowforge plywood, which is $23 for one sheet, which seems
one 12 by 20 sheet,
which seems insane to me, because I'm used to paying $3 to $5 for a sheet of 12 by 24, but the supplier that I used to buy from no longer does it, went out of business, and then the other place that I used to do from, they stopped getting it. And so I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I want to make this book nook, but like, I'm kind of struggling to find the material for it. So I may have to like buckle down and spend like an exorbitant amount for something just because it has the word Glowforge on it. But other than that,
does it have to be plywood, or can you use cardboard for this one, at least as like a facade and then do something over it if you need to.
If there was like a, what is it called, craft foam or HDF, high density foam or something, if there was an
You
equivalent,
can use EVA foam.
is there an eighth inch thick EVA foam that's like readily available?
There's thinner stuff.
Really? Yeah, I'm up for. I'm
just wondering
alternatives at this point.
Yeah.
Because as much as people love their Glowforge, spending 5 times the price for the same amount of material is it's a hard bullet to bite when I don't have my own Glowforge, so I don't need that sticker to justify the cost. But I'm excited about the project. I was hoping to have it done by tomorrow without finding any new materials or coming up with an alternative. It might be a few more days after that, but it's getting there, and I'm excited about it.
Very cool.
How about you, Sean?
We recorded last week, right?
We did. Yep.
Yeah, we did.
I can't even remember.
That's part of our topic of conversation tonight is the after effects of our recording from last week. So,
well, things kind of feel like a whirlwind right now. I've been busy. How do I put it? I've been busy to the extent that I can't keep track of time.
Yes.
Everything from things from work, esports started up again, so I'm dedicating more time towards that. Other responsibilities at work. My son started jiu-jitsu, so there's an extra event during the week, which is cool because I like watching it. It reminds me of when I used to wrestle in high school.
I saw that picture. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually sign up for the class myself and do it because I think I would really benefit from it again. I just don't know how to work with the leg because I technically can't have the leg out there. I'd knock somebody out with it. Yeah. And yeah, it's a whirlwind. I can't even, while you guys are talking, I was trying to remember, what did I do last weekend? I couldn't remember. And then I remember that we went for a walk / hike last Saturday. And then on Sunday it was just my son and I, and I don't know.
And you also had a match with your brother-in-law, right? Playing All Queen's Chess. Because you live streamed it.
Yeah, that was kind of he was over on Sunday and I showed him the thing and he wanted to play. So we decided to play a couple of rounds and he had the idea of putting it on this turntable.
Yeah.
And we played and it was really fun. It kind of added another dimension to it. But when we stopped and we put it back on the table, it was still spinning.
In your brain?
Yeah, it was. For a good 5 minutes, I could watch it and it was still spinning on the table. It was a really, really weird effect. But it was a lot of fun and kind of got to road test it a little bit more and worked out pretty well and he liked it. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was going to say something else too and I forgot what it was now. And then working on a couple different projects for things coming up too. I'm designing the garage cabinets that I'm going to be building and some web stuff that I'm doing and just trying to bite off little pieces of time to make progress on all these other things all at once. And just like this like incremental stuff, like I'm writing a new blog entry for the website and I've been writing it over a period of 3 weeks just because I haven't been able to sit down and write it all at once. And so I'm doing like 2 or 3 sentences at a time. And I think I finally almost finished it last night. So Just progress little by little and time's moving by fast. I mean, it's already February. Workbench Con is already in a couple weeks.
I know. We just talked about 3 weeks from tonight.
Yep.
We're going to be in Atlanta. That's scary and exciting all at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think I'm a little bit more nervous about going on this trip than I have compared to a lot of the previous ones. I don't know why. Maybe
because
just
of the
timing
event or
and everything
because
else.
of being around us?
No, well, neither. It
others.
doesn't have to do. It's the travel in and of itself. It's not the event. It's the travel.
Yeah, I get that.
Before we get into our topic, I have a quick question for you guys. Did you see the how do I put it? I don't want to call it news, but there was an announcement from Glowforge about their partnership with Exploding Kittens. Did you read about that?
Do tell.
So Glowforge partnered with Exploding Kittens to create an NFT, but it's a physical type of NFT. They're giving, I think, if I remember correctly, they're giving 10 away, and if you win one of these, you get the privilege of cutting this one. Is like a custom box for one of their new games called Happy Salmon. So if you win it, you own the NFT, but then you have to request the file from Glowforge to be able to cut it, and you only get to cut it once, and then the file gets destroyed. You'll still own the NFT as a digital object, but you can only get to cut the physical object once.
I'm reading about it now.
It just seems so. When I first looked at it, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I read deeper. I'm like, oh, I don't like that.
If you have a marketable audience for something like that, I guess why not capitalize on it? But
well,
as an audience member, I was like, oh, that's.
I don't know if the time's already passed. I already entered.
Oh yeah, it's already closed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then what I was gonna say doesn't matter. My intention was to try to win. Not like there's anything I can actively do about it other than trying to win. And I would get the file, I would cut it, and I wouldn't pull any of the pieces out. Take all the measurements, recreate it.
Take a picture.
Yep.
Oh, man.
What a weird pairing, though, between those two companies. Or maybe not. I don't know.
I guess it's not that weird of a pairing because I've looked at like some of the card games and some of the board games that I have and trying to figure out ways to implement things that I can 3D print or laser cut to either make like a custom case for it or, like enhance the figures in some way or whatnot.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to do.
Yeah, or turning tokens into figures, that kind of thing. And so it kind of makes sense as a pairing a little bit.
Well, I wasn't really talking about the strangeness of laser cutting and this game.
Yeah,
I was thinking about
or
company
just NFTs.
Wise. Company wise. Glowforge is a company, and Exploding Kittens as a company. And they're two entities that I never would have imagined crossing paths that way.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I speaking of things that have happened in the past week, our conversation last week about our thoughts over The Mandalorian sparked some
about the Book of Boba Fett.
Yes,
technically.
What did I say? The Mandalorian. Well,
that's so accurate.
I know.
I wasn't wrong.
Well, are we going to talk any spoilers? Because we should give a warning.
No.
If not. Just in general about the response, right?
No, just about the response.
Okay, I want to make sure for anybody that will possibly be listening. Okay.
Now, I know we have an audience. I know that there are people out there in the ether that listen to the show. I mean, we've seen the numbers and all that kind of stuff. But as much as we talk about different things on the show, I don't think I have had so many people DM me to talk about their feelings over everything that we talked about on the podcast last week about the Book of Boba Fett, and even our Discord, which if you are a Patreon member, you get access to our Discord and can join this hearty conversation. But even our Discord people were talking about it, and it was great.
I find it hilarious.
Yes. I love the fact that people were writing novels to me in Instagram Messenger,
long DMs,
telling me about their thoughts on what we talked about on the podcast last week.
And photo reference.
And with photo references, right?
like a dissertation.
It was so good. He was one of them, and I got a few more, and it was just great hearing having feedback from people in the audience. Like I said, I know we have an audience and there's people out there. We have patrons that support us. Like there are people out there in the world that listen to this. But a lot of times we don't hear a lot of feedback from the things that we talk about here on this channel. Well, last week, guess what? We got feedback.
Out of all the geek things we've talked about and criticized, for some reason, this one struck a nerve. out of all things. I mean, I thought at least like The Last Jedi would have had that same response, because I'm still pissed at that one. But really, Book of Boba Fett inspired that response?
I thought the first 4 episodes of this was far worse than that movie, but that's just my opinion.
I agree.
Just wait for the messages to come pouring in now, Wes.
Bring it.
Bring it.
Bring it.
Wes, we're making Geeks gets canceled.
You can send me all the messages you want, because I will not be available for the next 4 days.
Wes is going into hiding.
I am. Although by the time this airs, I'll only have 1 day left, so I guess it's not that much of an advantage.
The message will be waiting for you.
Yeah.
No, but one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it tonight is over this past week, I also went to the movie theater to watch the new Spider-Man movie with my kids, and was thinking about my opinion of the new Spider-Man movie and talking to people about it and whatnot. And there is
speaking of writing books and long messages, your recant of like some of the issues was pretty wordy as is.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
And you were thinking you're having these novel thoughts where people already discussed it in depth, like over the last month.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure they have. I'm sure there's probably like a film theory or Screen Rant or something about it.
Yeah, Film Theory covered it.
But I didn't watch any of those because
That's fair.
I didn't want anything spoiled.
I'd love to discuss it, yeah.
But one of the thoughts that I had, and it's a point that has come up in the topic of conversation over people's response to the Book of Boba Fett, is this argument that that these things, whether it be Spider-Man or Book of Boba Fett or Star Wars in general or whatever, that they're made for kids. And so us as like adults sitting here criticizing the character development or whatever is kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Is
juvenile?
Not juvenile,
pedantic?
But like kind of pedantic. Yes, that is the word I'm looking for. It's a little pedantic because we are not the target audience for this material. And that came up, that little argument came up in my mind as I was like going over the Spider-Man movie and all that kind of stuff, because I realized I think that argument is wrong.
It's absolutely
because
wrong.
I think
it's
we
hilarious.
are exactly the target audience for all of this new stuff's coming out, whether it's Book of Boba Fett or Spider-Man or whatever, like all that kind of stuff.
Actually,
like,
I would argue I don't think it's that simple.
No, I know that. But like specifically, I think about the new Spider-Man movie is that my kids really enjoyed it because it's a Spider-Man movie. My son loves Spider-Man. My daughter loves like action movies and all this stuff. Like my kids totally enjoyed it. But there was so much in that movie that they just did not get, that went completely over their head because they don't have this back catalog of like,
but that's okay,
2 other properties. Like that's a topic in and of itself. But I was like, this movie is not made for them. Like this movie is made for me, who grew up with all these characters, who have a past and a history, knowing the story from all these different universes that have been developed over the past 17 years, 16 years, whenever the first Spider-Man movie came out, something like that.
It came out right after 9/11.
Like,
and
20
so,
years.
Yeah. And so this argument of we're not the target market for these movies, I'm like, I'm exactly the target market, because it's like, not only did I grow up with these properties and with these characters and already have a pre-existing relationship with them, I'm at a point in my life where I have a disposable income to be able to spend the money to go and do these things, and I have children who then I can expose to these things to develop a new audience and a larger audience. And so this argument that we are not the target market, I think, is a false one, because I think we're exactly the target market.
No, it's not a false one. It's not the whole picture.
Yeah. But I did want to bring that up in terms of like, because like even on Discord, it came up. Like that exact argument came up. It's like, you have to remember, Star Wars is made for kids, like being like super critical.
How many kids have in-depth conversations about like the trade practices and Senate like procedures and bylaws and crime syndicates? Give me a break. That is laughable.
Have you been in an elementary school classroom? It's all politics.
Yeah. My son loves the parts.
It's like, The head in a bag. Yeah, kids love that.
Yeah, come on. That's so hilarious. No.
But you know what though? It's all these properties have always been a little bit of a mixed bag.
Sure.
And you go back to Return of the Jedi. You have the Ewoks. You go back to Episode 1. You have Jar Jar. So as much as you want to talk about Senate meetings, that there's always there's always something there that really is specifically for the younger audience, and that's why it's always mixed. And that's why I was saying that it's not always that clear cut. The stuff might be to appeal to us to get us in the door, but there still has to be other things there that are for the younger audience as well, because they are the ones going to be coming through, watching the stuff in 20 years. And
to me, it's no different than like a movie like, let's say, like Shrek. Like Shrek has like a thing on the surface that kids love. It's just like animated characters doing like fart jokes or whatever, like gross out humor and just being silly and doing funny things and funny songs. But there's like another underlying layer to it that like there's all these innuendos and references to pop culture things and like references to Disney and like poking fun at Disney, all these things that they would never pick up on, and that's intended by design to basically tell two overlying messages at the same time simultaneously to entertain two different groups that are in the theater together. And I don't think that should be used as like a detriment for Star Wars to say that there's all this stuff that kids aren't getting because they don't have the backstory. These are like additional morsels for us to get entertained by while they're still entertained by the surface of action-y Spider-Man stuff.
Not only that, but even if it was just made for kids, I don't think it's an excuse to tell a crappy story.
Oh yeah, absolutely not.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm not the one that brought that up.
Phineas and Ferb is
biker gang.
Phineas and Ferb is like supposedly made for kids, but that's like super deep cuts and references to like all kinds of adult stuff. Like yeah, that. Mm.
Yeah, and it's I guess it's also kind of hard because 2021 was definitely a breakout year for adult animation, and seeing what can be done when you take like atypical, made for kids stuff, but mix it with like adult themes and good development and all that kind of stuff. I talk about Arcane all the time. I don't want to overdo it, but like that, watching that kind of changed because I'm like, this, like it is possible to do something so well done that it doesn't need like criticized and ripped apart like we do here on the show all the time with like Star Wars properties and Marvel's properties and things like that. Like there is a way to do it and do it well. And we're not criticizing them for the attempt of like marketing to kids, but still including adults, all that other kind of stuff. I'm so glad that Sean brought it up. It doesn't excuse bad storytelling. Because it doesn't.
It sets a bad example for the kids. No.
Yeah, that's usually my argument. I understand that, but no, the things that I loved, like specifically about the Book of Boba Fett, the things that I loved about the Mandalorian, like are the exact same things that I like make the Book of Boba Fett almost not enjoyable. Because all the things that they got right with the Mandalorian, you would think that they would have learned from and have translated that to the Book of Boba Fett, but it's like they just forgot what they did last week. And
I think that our conversation last week, without treading all of the same ground, I think that some of the possibilities that we discussed kind of, I don't want to say vindicated at all, but kind of give an explanation that we kind of, might have to just be okay with. And that is simply, you have the directors and the writers who wrote something that was probably better than what appears on screen. And then, like what I said, like the invisible hand, most likely the producers or Kathleen Kennedy, because she does it all the time, messing with something and making it either fit an agenda or some sort of weird, other purpose, I don't know, that kind of gets in the way of what it should have been. Yeah. And we've seen that constantly with different properties, mainly with Star Wars for whatever reason. Yeah. I think it happens more with Star Wars than a lot of other things. Although we saw it in DC too with some of the Zack Snyder stuff,
I think the problem is that there's not really a Kevin Feige equivalent, like someone who is actually like.
Well,
like,
there is. There's Kathleen Kennedy, but
she's
she
not
hasn't done a
involved
good
in
job.
the storylines and stuff like that and planning. I don't think she's that level.
Oh, I beg to differ, because you look at the effect and you see it there.
If that was true, then there would be more better continuity between episodes 7, 8, and 9.
Well, no. What I mean is that
she's controlling.
She's not on the ground floor writing the stuff, but you could see her mark on the way that things had been changed for whatever reason. So it's definitely not a positive effect.
Yeah,
it's kind of like messing with something after the effect.
Like a universe runner. Like that's how I considered him to be. Like you have showrunners, right? I think he's sort of making sure everything meshes well.
We're kind of supposed to, but you can't at that level when somebody else has ultimate control. The only reason it works is Feige.
They were supposed to, but yeah.
Yeah.
The last 2 episodes, including this week's of the Book of Boba Fett.
Episode 6, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you watch those 2 episodes as a thing, and then compare it to just even the scooter bike episode, and they're written by basically the same people, like they're so different, but they're supposed to be together.
There has to be something happening behind the scenes.
It's bizarre.
We're not aware of. But remember, we had similar conversations with some of the Disney Plus shows that came out.
Yeah.
With Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and what was the other one?
Not WandaVision?
No, WandaVision too. But wasn't there another one after that? Also,
Hawkeye,
Loki, what if? Maybe it was just Actually, I think it was just WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, where things were changed because of COVID and just different situations.
Right.
I don't know if any of that affected Book of Boba Fett. There could be a possibility there too. I don't know. But I could almost guarantee that there was something that changed from the way it was supposed to be. Because you see like little bits and pieces of what could have been. But, yeah, anyways.
I look forward to wrapping it up with the finale and having a bit more bird's eye view of what the season looks like.
Yeah, we already talked about it more today than we even...
That may be at Workbench Con. Want to be?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be. That'd be nice.
Are we...
is that Wednesday the finale? Wait.
Yeah, kind of shifting gears. Like, are we gonna podcast at Workbench Con?
He won't be at Workbench Con on Thursday though, right? We would just push it to Friday or something.
Yeah, we could push it to Friday.
Yeah, I'll be arriving like Friday morning around 10.
Live from Atlanta, it's Friday night.
If we carve it, would we want to carve out part of the Friday evening for that? We'll have to discuss it. We'll discuss it.
Yeah, we can discuss it. But
we'll do it over breakfast. We'll have a breakfast with the guys. We'll just record
that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Just do like a very loose live stream podcast.
Yeah, like a round table.
What was it? There was some show one year where Wesley, you and Josh were there, and you had different people coming in. Was that at Joel Crawford's shop?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Tony Rouleau was there. Yeah,
I'm sitting here.
Yeah,
you guys are having fun, and people are popping in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible to do it every year. There's probably like 2 or 3 podcasts that are sitting in a lobby.
Yeah.
Like somebody's sitting in the 2nd floor lobby, somebody's sitting in the 3rd floor lobby, somebody's sitting in the little rotunda, like doing their podcast. It's possible because there are other people that do it, and we're one of the longest running podcasts that are going to be at that convention. So it would behoove us to at least record all of our voices together in the same place at the same time.
Yep.
So with the conversation of that, like talking about Workbench Con, Wes, you got a trip coming up. You guys wanted to talk about. I don't know, seeing people face to face.
Yeah, and traveling and just the idea of taking a break and having like a time kind of for yourself and also to be with other people to kind of break up the monotony of your normal life, I guess. I don't know. Even having like a retreat. Like that's what I consider this is sort of like a little retreat in a way.
Are you talking about the podcast or your trip that's coming up tonight?
No, I consider Workbench Con kind of a retreat. You know, it's like it's a maker retreat in a way. So the one I'm going on is just something I've done. I don't know how many years now. It's probably been close to 9 or 10 years running, It's this cold weather camp out that I do with a close friend of mine that lives locally, and we originally created it as a way to have an event that we could go to, but still have an excuse as to why we don't have to take the kids along. Because like we would go in late January, early February, where the average temperature is like 30 degrees or something, and what kid is going to want to go camping in that kind of weather in a tent, right? So that was sort of our angle. And the first year we did it, it was just him and I. Over the years, subsequently, it rose to about like 14 people. We had to reserve 2 sites worth of campsites to hold this thing. And I would like cook a lot of the food. We would go on hikes and eat really well. It was all car camping. There wasn't really any hiking to a campsite, so it was pretty easy going. It's not very hardcore, but it could get cold. But over the last couple of years, the weather has been repeatedly pretty bad as far as like rain and snow and stuff, and we got kind of tired of setting up a tarp city just for the entire weekend, just to sort of stay out of the water while still freezing. And so last year we rented a cabin at one of these campsites instead of a tent, my buddy and I. And so that's where we ended up playing a lot of video games and card games and board games and things like that, tabletop stuff. And so we've got 2 other people along for the ride this year. So we're going to rent it. We rented another cabin. There'll be 4 of us. Play some like Settlers of Catan and some Switch games and other things. It's just sort of like a retreat, just to kind of reset. And
so has that changed the whole dynamic of the trip?
I think it kind of did. It's so hard to go back from. We knew this going into the last year's, where it was the first time we did a cabin. Like, man, this is going to be hard to go from this back to a tent again in the freezing cold. And there's something to be enjoyed about, like, we got to enjoy freezing our nuts off, as we lovingly called the event. It was the annual Freeze Your Nuts Off camping trip. And we'll probably go back to that, but and the weather is going to be kind of poor this weekend as well, which kind of makes us lean to having a cabin. But we'll probably have to rough it again at some point. But not. Couldn't you just
get the cabin and then put the tent right outside the cabin?
Yeah.
And then you could kind of like switch between and.
We should do that, definitely.
Or just get an awning, set it right outside the cabin. Call it a tent-like experience, and just make sure that you like have one meal out there, and it still counts.
Right. Granted, over the last 10 years, at the beginning of the 10 years, sleeping on a air mattress or a camping air mattress, not a full air mattress, impacts my back a lot less back then than it may now. So it's not as enjoyable to sleep on the ground. But I want to get my son and daughter more into it than we have in the past. Again, we have an RV, so it's hard to say like, oh, we have an RV, let's go tent camping. Like, it's hard. It's almost the same problem. But I enjoy tent camping. I've always enjoyed it as a kid, so I want to go back to that. But
yeah, that is one like huge downfall with the Boy Scouts being kind of a thing of the past now, is that all of these experiences and memories and whatnot that I had as a kid that I tell my kids about all the time, they're not going to be able to experience, and it's kind of sad. So it's cool having like that retreat and then bringing in your kid to something like that, whereas before it'd be something like Scouts or whatnot.
Right. Yeah, but as far as like adult trips and things, are there any sort of trips that you guys can think of that you've gone on in the past that you consider like a retreat? Not necessarily a vacation or annual vacation, but something that is more, not necessarily with your direct family, either in your past or something maybe we can plan on in the future, something we can sort of come up with, or...
I've done a couple of things in the past, but nothing that's ever been recurring, like a tradition or ritual. We've talked about it in my family for a while, but I'm not sure if we will ever get around to it. And part of the problem is that it's not something that we've ever really done. We don't have the experience of doing it. And in a small way, I don't think there's a really big desire to do it. If at all, we'd probably only do it once, and that's only because I'd want my kids to have the experience of what it's actually like. I've been tent camping a couple times, and maybe just my upbringing or the area that I live in, it's not anything that I say I would look forward to. I'm glad I had the experience, but it's not something that I don't think I've ever really fully connected with. But there's a couple different reasons why too. I mean, one time I was camping on cliffs in Mexico, going kayaking on a kayak trip. That was fun. It was a one-time thing. Another time, like camping out at campsites. But it's never been what I kind of picture. Like, I want to go camping like Yosemite or like an actual national park or something like that. And we haven't done any of that. And when nobody in the group really has that kind of experience,
yeah,
it's kind of hard to take that step and that leap and
Sure.
do that. You kind of need
that.
somebody that has more experience. At least that's the way I feel, to kind of get into it. I could go out to REI and buy a bunch of equipment and get started. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. So
That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, we when I was right before I got married, when I was single, or not when I was single, but like when I was dating before my wife and I got married, every year we would go up to Colorado for a ski trip. That was kind of a recurring thing, a thing that after we got married just died off. Because when you get married, like your friend dynamic changes, and so all the like major activities you used to go through together and like all bunk in the same hotel room and cram in one car and be it was super fun, but it changes when you get married, and so we kind of stopped doing that. But I've talked about like trying to do something like that, at least for our family. Is one of the things that we've talked about is replacing Christmas gifts with a Christmas trip, because we look at, and after Christmas every year we look at our budget to see this is what we spent on like decorations or toys or food, because food is obviously a big part of that. And it's like, well, if we take everything that we spent on like toys for the kids or whatever, we could all fly us up to whatnot. And so one of the things that we're going to start doing next year is that we're going to have a Christmas trip instead of big presents and things like that. And so that'll be fun, but that's for specifically for family. For me as an individual, it's always been, well, not always, like for the past 4 years, it's been Workbench Con has been my one getaway. And then of course last year it was WestCon. WestCon 1.0, which I can't wait to do again. But those have been the only two like me things that I think I've done in the past ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Donovan, you brought up something that kind of connects to something that my wife and I have been talking about a lot over the last, say, 2-3 years, and that is investing more in experiences versus material items. I mean, not like we have any shortage of material items either, but looking at the time that we spend together more on like experience. So we may not be going camping and stuff, even though I like that idea, and we still do want to do, Zion National Park, Yosemite, maybe in Yellowstone at some point. Where we've been looking more into like road trips and seeing new places that way. We still want to do Route 66. We've done part of it, but we want to do like the full thing. So I think that's kind of what we're looking forward to in terms of a tradition of doing something like that every year, a road trip. And seeing new places. There's so much to see where we live, not just in California but the country. That I'm looking forward to more of that. I love being outdoors. I love nature, but it's probably going to always be in like smaller increments or smaller hikes.
Doses, yeah.
And unfortunately, reality situations, I have some limitations as far as that goes too, and that changes the way that we plan things for the future.
It's understandable.
Yep.
What are you guys hoping to get out of talking about Workbench? Since it's coming up 3 weeks, like what do you guys hope to get out of Workbench Con? I mean, is there anything that you guys like specifically look forward to get out of something like this? Because I know we've done, we've done like Maker Faire and stuff like that in the past together, but
So I haven't put a whole lot of thought into it, but I thought about it just like a very little bit. And for those that aren't familiar, I know we've talked about it for a couple weeks now, but if you're not that familiar with what Workbench Con is, it's primarily an event for. Actually, I should probably have you guys say it. Why don't you guys give a rundown of how would you describe what Workbench Con is? Since I'm the only one that hasn't even been there yet, so I just haven't even been given this description.
I would say, good.
Oh, I was just going to describe it as a convention for YouTubers in the DIY space.
Yeah, DIY content creators, yeah.
Yeah, DIY content creators. Because there are some like strictly like blogger people that come.
And that's why it's content. You have to say content creator.
Yeah, that I think are kind of like bleed overs from like Haven. Because Haven is another big convention for DIY folks.
I never heard of that. What is that?
Haven is like Workbench Con, but more geared towards bloggers.
I'd never heard of it before. Okay.
Yeah. But there's been this whole bleed over from the blogging sphere and the YouTube sphere because people that are traditionally bloggers are now getting into making videos. And so there's this convergence of like the traditional YouTuber with the traditional blogger kind of meeting together. Whereas where Workbench Con, you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of people that have come from the blogging space or the blogging sphere, and you're going to see a lot of people that are like have come from the YouTube sphere and the kind of bleed over in between those two communities. And they kind of, it's funny because they kind of like, I don't want to say cliquey or stick to their own, but you can see the little pockets of people that have come from like particular circles or whatnot as they interact with each other at Workbench Con. And you'll get to see all that in person because you'll be there. It'll be great.
So you asked what we're hoping to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I'd have to look at the schedule again. I don't even know if the schedule is complete yet. But there's a couple of the classes or people talking that I'm curious about listening to. And, learning anything I can. But I know that from what you guys have told me and what I've seen, the other party is also meeting with potential advertisers or sponsors. And that's kind of where I'm up in the air. Because while I would love to have more opportunities for sponsorships because of what it could possibly bring, I don't know. I don't think I'm in a position to push that hard in that direction right now. So I don't know how much preparation. Well, I should probably prepare, either way. But I don't know. I'm looking forward to get, networking, meeting up with people, and maybe learning a couple things. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of it for me for right now. I wish I could do more, but I can't. I can't dedicate anything more to that right now.
Yeah, I would say it's sort of, for me, it's taken the place of Workbench Con. Sorry, Workbench Con has taken the place of Maker Faire. For me, I used to do an annual pilgrimage out to the San Mateo Bay Area Maker Faire, and that cost probably the equivalent of, if not more than, Workbench Con as far as like flight and food and other miscellaneous expenses. Whereas here, on this side of the country, it's close enough for me to drive, which is equivalent to similar to Sean's situation, where the other event, Maker Faire, was close enough for him to drive, so it's sort of reversed. So I just kind of take the admission ticket and just imagine that's being transposed for like a flight that I normally would spend for work for a Maker Faire. And so that doesn't really bother me so much anymore. I don't really care so much about the sponsorship stuff. It's hard for me to get a read on people. A lot of times I hate salesman people, and it just immediately turns me off from even wanting to talk to them. And not everybody that's at a booth is that way. A lot of them are content creators that are just there to help out the brand that they are in bed with or whatever, which is fine. I'm mostly there for the people that are not necessarily affiliated with a company. All the stuff that happens, it's kind of like just like Maker Faire. Like Maker Faire, the event's great, but all the fun stuff happens like in between Maker Faire while you're out there, and that played out the same way for Workbench Con the last year that I'd gone 2 years ago, in that two people, a married couple that I met for the very first time in person at Workbench Con. Somehow I convinced them to move where I am. I'm not 100% responsible. I don't claim to, have that much influence on somebody, nor do I want that much.
Oh, it was a pretty big influence, though.
I must have sold it really well because they're here now, which is fantastic. And to be able, that was an unintended side effect that I could not have imagined. That is still impacting my life.
How funny would it be if each year?
I know.
You draft somebody else.
I know.
Out to North Carolina.
I know. I mean, one of those people work in the same company that my wife works at right now. So, me going to Workbench Con impacted my wife's day-to-day work in a positive way. It's weird. The snowball effect of this. So you never know where those kinds of interactions and life-changing moments are going to come from, and they won't come from anywhere if you don't reach out and try to go to this sort of stuff. If you just stay in your shop at home and tinker around, you could be perfectly fine. But there are other opportunities out there, and things that are popping up, other opportunities and experiences that you might be missing out on if you just kind of don't give it a shot.
Yeah. And you can't have Wes talk you into moving to North Carolina if you're not there.
That's right.
So you got to be there.
Got to be there.
Workbench Con is a pretty high barrier for entry simply because of the ticket cost.
Yep.
But I'll say this for anybody listening that has not yet gone to some sort of maker meetup / event, and that is that you can do a lot on your own with content creation or making your own things and be extremely content, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But
Definitely.
having been to Maker Faire several years, and then I haven't been to Workbench Con yet, but I have a good idea of the setup. That there's still so much to be learned simply just by being around other people in person and having these candid conversations that are almost impossible online. It's an amazing experience.
Yep.
And I could think back to almost every one that I've been to, every meetup I've been to so far, and how they've impacted not just my work and what I create, but personally. And it's kind of cool coming across people. And I remember the first time I met Paul Jackman in person. I said, hey Paul, I'm Sean from Geek World. He goes, yeah, I know who you are. I'm like, what? That kind of recognition and almost like this brotherhood that is formed is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think I definitely take a lot more away from the experiences with the people than I do from the classes. I hate to say that because you're going and you're paying for the classes.
You taught a class last year.
No, I did, and it was fantastic. It was
cool.
The best class at Workbench Con, if I do say so myself. But no, I love the classes because there is a lot that can. How do I say this without sounding whatever? There is a lot that can be learned from the classes at Workbench Con. That being said, I don't think there is a lot of applicable stuff that can be learned at the classes at Workbench Con. And the reason why I say that is because the people that teach classes at Workbench Con, myself excluded from this comment, are on a completely different level than the rest of everyone at Workbench Con. It's part of the reason why I don't listen to a lot of other makers' podcasts. or watch their videos, even though I love their face. Like it's the same reason why I don't consume that other content, is because the things that they talk about on their podcast or the things that they teach in these classes at Workbench Con, while it may apply to them in their very 1% of experience, it does not apply to the rest of us. And the things that they teach sound really good in principle, but are not very applicable in practice. And so even though I love the classes at Workbench Con, there's a lot of good information there. Very little of it is going to apply to all the people that go and sit in those classes, hoping to become like the people that are teaching those classes.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. On a somewhat related note, it's one of the reasons why I'm in the process of planning some very early and very basic tutorial stuff for maybe eventually for making, but at least right now animation, because it's required by my job. But for anybody that is trying to, and it's a little bit of a tangent here, but if you go online and you look for a drawing tutorial or a painting tutorial on YouTube, you're usually going to see people at a professional level doing it and trying to teach. And that's kind of the wrong approach for somebody just usually starting out. They actually need something even a lot more basic than that. And I think that similar things apply in the maker space for people that are trying to build up. You're taking advice from a pro that they do know what they're talking about a lot, but there's such a huge gap between where a lot of us are starting and where they are. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot lost in that transition there.
Yeah, because I mean, this is a conversation that Wes and I had last week, late into the night, is like some of the things that we are going to do differently this year than we've done in the past. Talking about growing as a channel and as content and all of that other kind of stuff. Because we're going to Workbench Con. We're going to sit in classes and learn from people who are going to try to tell us how to grow our content or make better content, or and things like that, which is the whole point of the convention.
Well, those conversations are never that great to begin with.
Yeah,
you can't tell somebody how to grow their channel when the controlling factor of that is out of our control, or at least a large part of that anyways. Unless they're going to tell us how to manipulate the algorithm.
Yeah.
No.
There's so many people that taught classes there that said, like, this is the way to do things. This is how you should do it. This is what your thumbnail should be. Da-da-da-da. And the entire time I was sitting there, like, after they're done, I'm just thinking, Bobby Duke. And it just it takes all their reasoning and throws it in the trash. Like, there's no way to make a formulaic, like, approach. There are certain ways there, tactics.
It's not formulaic. But the thing is that all those things are still actionable. All those things still can be improved on.
Yes.
The problem, the problem. Well, no, but the problem is that results may vary. No, sure. not may vary. Results do vary.
Yeah.
And that's the bigger problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Challenge, however you want to phrase it.
The people that teach classes that I'm in probably don't like me being in their classes, because I'm always the guy that's in the back of the room that raises his hand. That's like, but not but I'm the one that I tend to ask questions that people, the hard questions that people may think about, but they are too embarrassed to ask. I'm usually the guy in the back of the room that's like, well, what about this? And like last Workbench Con, there was a specific panel that had like 5 different companies and Adam from Lazy Guy DIY that was managing it, that these companies were talking about how to develop a relationship or how to get sponsors, basically. That was what the whole class was about. And they were up there saying the stereotypical things that you hear all the time with like how to get sponsors and working with sponsors and all this other kind of stuff. And I was in the back of the class. I'm like, well, what about this? Well, what about this? And it just got to the point where I had to stop asking questions because people were too uncomfortable to answer them, which is fine. Like, I understand that. Like, people just want the generic feel good information. Well, I'm over here trying to like mine for the diamond under all that coal. And it's there is good information to be had. I don't want this to discourage anybody from like not wanting to go to Workbench Con or attend the classes or anything like that. There's very good information to be had. I don't want to say the but.
There's another way to approach this, and I just want to mention this before I forget about it. In that, if you're thinking about going to Workbench Con and you want to go for the people and not necessarily for the con, there are a handful of people that I know right now that are going and they're staying at the hotel that the event's taking place at, where everybody else is staying, but they're not actually getting tickets to this. And there's enough of them where they're going out and doing things around town, like different museums and other things during the day, and then coming back for all the cool stuff at night. And I know possibly one person that might be coming internationally to try this. So if you're on the fence about it, or you want to hang out or have an excuse to hang out, this is your excuse. If you live near Atlanta or on the Eastern Seaboard, and it's drivable, I would say do it. I would say do it. Don't let the price tag of the Workbench Con be a factor, because there's still going to be people to interact with outside of those, like that gated access, to that one conference room. Like there's most of the good conversations are going to happen at the restaurants and the other like tables and stuff, even in the lobby of the hotel. Mm-hmm. So if you've never attended a maker event like this, if you've always wanted to or weren't sure how to start or know who to talk to or whatever, if you're listening to this, you know us. And if you come to that and you've never been to one of the events, I'll be happy to introduce you to everybody that I know. Or not, if it's not your thing. If you just want to like hang out with us, that's fine too.
And I just want to put, Wes knows a lot of people. So
it can be intimidating for a lot of people to, be dropped into that mix, and it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
So if you're not that kind of social light, which is fine, I'm not either. It may seem like I am online, but in person I'm not. I'm more often the person in the back of the room hanging out and not talking to anybody. That's my default state. And these sort of in-person events are my attempt to break out of that shell. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Social anxiety is a thing. I know a lot of people that have attended Workbench Con and Maker Faire for the first time, and that was like their first attempt at breaking through like the social anxiety of being around other people, and then the benefit outweighed the negative of like that feeling, and they were able to cope with it because other people had the same feelings. So
yeah, and it's like, not to put them in a spotlight or anything.
Yes.
But Nicole and Turi came to Workbench Con for the first time 2 years ago. So like last Workbench Con. And I still remember the moment meeting them for the first time and them kind of sitting off by themselves, not interacting with anybody, and like meeting him, talking to him and introducing him to people. And like Wes is there. And by the end of Workbench Con, like I remember we were all sitting in the back of the bar or whatever, and Nicole and Turi were the center of attention to all of these people that were there just to talk to them. And it was fantastic. And I'm like, to go from like the beginning of Workbench Con, where you're kind of like sitting off by yourself, not talking to anybody, to being the center of attention, for a whole bunch of tables and a whole bunch of people that are just there because they want to soak in your awesomeness, is just, it's great. It's amazing. It's an amazing experience to be had. I think one of the benefits is, I think one of the mindset that you should have going to Workbench Con is to go for the people. The class is extra, like, not the cherry on top, but like the whipped cream on top of whatever, but like definitely go for the people, and everything else will just be, added benefit.
Yep.
Yeah. Have we sold it well enough?
I didn't know if we were trying to sell it or just talk about the idea of.
Since it's only 3 weeks away, I think we're not reaching out to anybody that's still on the fence anymore. You've either made your decision to go or you haven't, because we're running out of time to plan it.
Yep.
But that said, What are you guys geeking out about this week?
Book of Boba Fett. The current episode 6. I saw it today. It was very nice.
I'm gonna watch it after we get off tonight, so that I can go online and not have anything spoiled.
Good man.
Yeah.
I'm geeking out about something that was actually suggested by a listener. Donald from Fun with Woodworking suggested this one a couple weeks ago, and we didn't really have a geeking out last week, so that's why. There's a website called Ars Technica that is a really good tech website, probably one of the better ones I would say journalistically. But they also have a YouTube channel, and they have a series of videos on that channel called War Stories. And it is stories of game developers and their kind of challenges in developing certain games, like whether it was Diablo or Civilization. And it's really cool storytelling and hearing, especially with games that we probably grew up with, of how they came about, challenges with them, just really cool facts about them. And it's done pretty well. So, and I've been watching them for a while too, so I really like them. So War Stories on YouTube from Ars Technica, if you want that retro nostalgic gaming fix.
So one of the things that this is just, I think yesterday that this happened. Sean, was it you that talked about the was it the JavaScript org website where it's all of this JavaScript created files for laser cutting and 3D printing?
No, that was
like
from
open
that wasn't me.
source.
That was that George from Technically Woodworking, or somebody else? One of our groups suggested it. I get it, though.
So I wish I could remember the name of it. There's a website that's this JavaScript based website that is one of those open source websites specifically for designing files for laser cutting and 3D printing. And there are a lot of websites, not a lot, but there are a handful of websites out there like Thingiverse and whatnot, where you can go and try and find different files. But they all tend to fall under like similar categories, especially with like Thingiverse or 3D Cults or whatnot. And I went to this website and looked around, and it seems like a really good source for an alternative place to find, to find at least ideas for different designs and projects and stuff you can cut out in your laser cutter. So I'm geeking out about the resources available for people to do laser cutting projects, specifically because that's what I'm working on right now. So yeah. I think we lost Wes. Is he paused? Oh no, he's not paused. He's just not moving.
I'm here.
How's it going, Wes?
Good. I was making sure I wasn't typing and killing your audio.
No,
as far as I can tell, it's
thank
good.
you. With that, I just want to tell everybody that, like last week's episode, if you have thoughts on what we're talking about tonight, you can message us individually. Sean can be found on all of his handles at Geek Builders. Wes can be found on all of his socials at Geeksmithing, and I can be found on Instagram at Once Upon a Workbench.
And we'd like to take this awesome opportunity to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/makinggeeks for helping us keep the show on the air with their contributions every time we release an episode. It's from those contributions that enable us to do cool stuff and have things to give away and at events like Workbench Con, and among other things throughout the years we've done this. We appreciate each and every one of them. We hope to see many of them at Workbench Con. And we would also like to thank our top patrons, Jordan, Square Splinter, and Clinton. Thank you guys so much for your support. We appreciate you.
And we have a website. You should check it out. MakingGeeks.com. You could go and type that in, and you can listen to all of our past episodes right there on the browser. You can check out the shop where we have some themed merchandise for you to check out and hopefully purchase. So make sure that you go ahead and do that. Also, we would love it if you're able to leave a review on your favorite podcast player of choice. That helps with the visibility of the show and hopefully get it in front of more listeners just like you. And, tell some friends about it too. I'm sure that there are a lot more people out there that would love the show that don't even know about it yet. And you'll find new episodes of the show every Saturday morning on your favorite podcast player of choice. So from all of us to all of you, have a great week. Go make something fun.
Bye.
I never know what to say at the end.
Bye. See you later. Have a good week.
Okay, bye.